only every few years to visit.
Sir, how were you able to control such situations, a long situation of martial law during your watch?
Well, I had a lot of help. Friends, of course, the faculty, staff, and students were all very supportive.
Even you,
Yeah, we had good relations with the other universities and colleges in Iloilo. We had an association here, as a matter of fact. So problems that were common to all of us, and there were many, we would work out during, we had regular meetings of the school heads. So we had very good communications with them. We shared our problems and our solutions. So that helped a great deal. The church was very supportive.
How about in the government, sir? During that time, I was also involved in something that makes life uneasy, you know.
Yeah.
So how were you able to relate to the Marcos government at that time?
Well, we had not much of a problem because our dealings with the government was through what was then the Ministry of Education.
Oh,
There,
okay.
there were
I
no, there was no TED, no DEX, no TESDA. It was just one, the Ministry of Education. The minister at one time for I don't know how many years was a good friend. He was a colleague from UP, Odi Corpus. So we had easy access to him. The local officials were all very good to us. And I attended on behalf of CPU a number of meetings, which either the military or the civil government would call for coordination with the schools. We had good working relations. In fact, at one time, the head of the I forget now. It was still the PC at that time,
Yeah.
the Philippine Constabulary, headed by a colonel who was also friendly to us. In fact, a friend invited him to our fundraising activity, and he donated. At that time, it was a princely amount, 5,000 pesos, which was one of the biggest donations during that fund campaign period. We did several fund campaigns. So we did not really have any problems in relations with both the military and the civil government.
At the time, we saw your strength and you're very able to move on between the university and between the military. So, what was the most difficult situation, sir, during that time, and how were you able to handle that?
I can't remember anymore. Maybe they were not that big problems. But I don't remember any major difficulty.
Can you compare your situation as a president of Central Philippine University with the Seliman University?
They were similar in that both were founded by missionaries.
Okay.
This one was founded by American Baptists. The one there was founded by Presbyterians, Americans. So, and there has been some interaction between the two. They both are Christian institutions of higher learning. The culture is quite different. Ours, we come from a maybe lower middle to lower economic class. The ones there are mostly middle or upper class. The culture was in many ways different. They organized their union there ahead of us, but eventually we both had the same situation. We had two unions there as well as here. One faculty union, one staff union. When I left here, they had labor problems there when I arrived. In fact, 1 month after I arrived, the faculty union declared a strike. But we solved that. When I left here, long before I left here, we also had a strike here. It was conducted by the staff. There it was the faculty. Here, the strike lasted about 2 weeks. So when I got there, 1 month later, they declared a strike as soon as we came back from Christmas vacation. And one of my vice presidents there was quite worried. She said, what are we going to do?
Who
And
assumed the presidency, sir, after that? After you left CPU?
they appointed an officer in charge.
So by appointment, it was Dr. Acanto, I believe, or
No, here you mean?
yes?
No, here, before I left, when I left, they had elected Dr. Aganto.
Oh, there was an election.
Yes.
But there, when
There, when the president left, because he resigned months before I arrived, they had an officer in charge, who was our vice president for academic affairs.
Okay.
So when I arrived, that lady, she was a lady, returned to her position as VPAA, and I assumed as president. But as I was saying, I had experienced a 2-week strike here.
Mhm.
When I arrived there, they had a strike, and they were asking me, what are we going to do? They didn't know I had already gone through that, so I told them, you prepare for a 2-week strike, because I knew how to do it here.
Anyway, sir, in both situations, in both positions, we really admire your management acumen, your strength and everything. So how do you, or what is this enduring principle you have that makes you really stick to a very difficult situation and solve it?
Well, the ingredients, I think, were a lot of prayer and very, very hard work. I had the advantage of having a very loving wife, which was a very big plus factor. In fact, one time, they honored me at Siliman. They dedicated a building and named it after me. It was one of the buildings built during my term there. And they were saying, you know, for every good man, there is always a good woman behind. So when my turn came to speak, I said, no, in our case, my wife was not behind me. We were side by side. We were helping each other.
So what is your greatest achievement in the university during your stint there?
There?
Before the CPU.
In CPU.
What is your greatest achievement?
Well, there were several. I would not select one as really the greatest. Among the high points, I think, was we were able to construct some buildings. Rose Memorial was constructed during my term. Engineering building, and we were able to get a fairly substantial grant from the government for that. We introduced, as I already mentioned, a number of programs, and one of the things I think, maybe not the greatest, but certainly one of the great things we did, together with the faculty and staff and students, was the accreditation of a large number of programs.
Okay. And in Siliman, sir, do you also have what you could, okay, televiewers, we are still with Dr. Pulido and Ma'am Doris. I'm looking at your impressive records, sir, and all of those struggles you have. It seems that you have pursued excellence. What is your secret, sir, or what is your inspiration, I should say?
Well, very early, I think developed this, whatever you call it, habit, attitude, or discipline of really doing the best, and to pursue that, you know, wholeheartedly. When I was a college student in Siliman, unlike many others of my classmates and colleagues, I didn't go to socials at all. I just focused on my studies because I believe I was there to study. So I worked very hard as a student. I graduated magna cum laude, and it worked very well. Immediately after graduation, one of my faculty members there invited me to join him. In UP, he wanted to take graduate students in chemistry. So he said, why don't you come with me? I did, and we were classmates there.
When I was supposed to have only 2 years pre-med before I go to proper medicine. But since I was very, very thin, can you imagine, I was only 80 pounds, my parents advised that I should get a degree so that in case will not for that summer. And after regular class year, I came back to CPU to finish my Bachelor of Science.
The things that you like with this guy before.
He was a good gentleman friend, classmate, and we went to church together, and we turned out that her mother and my mother were schoolmates in their time in Negros. So we just kept our friendship. No committed promises because I had a long course to finish. So it was more than 8 years that we had.
So now at present, how do you like to good relationship like before when you were not yet married?
Well, while he was here with CPU, if there are some important travels, he usually brings me along with him. And when I was working at the hospital then, we sometimes time it that I say I have a conference in Cebu. And so he would meet me in Cebu.
I think young people should also emulate is that it's really important to find someone who brings out the best in you.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yes, sir. So
Definitely.
I would like, Sir Sai told me to actually make a statement of my observation, but I would like to ask both of you, Dr. Pelido and Ma'am Doris, how did your marriage help you bring out the best in each other? Because I believe you sir, are a very busy man, and your wife is also a doctor. So during the time of your marriage, how did you keep the fire alive, and how